Hello, my name is Serena. I'm 28. I built a tech company worth millions. Yet every morning I step onto a crowded city bus. People stare, whisper, even laugh, because they can't understand why someone like me lives so simply. But the truth is, this choice became the spark of the biggest family conflict I've ever faced. At our last dinner, while my cousins paraded their designer suits and luxury handbags, I walked in with nothing more than my worn-out jeans and an antique watch on my wrist. That night, Ethan smirked across the table. "Still taking the bus, Serena?" he mocked. I almost ignored him until I noticed my father's eyes fix on my watch. In that instant, his face hardened, the room grew uncomfortably silent, and I knew something was about to change forever. If you're watching this, drop a comment with where you're from, smash that like button, and subscribe, because what happened next shocked an entire family obsessed with money and power, and it all started with a single flick of my wrist. Growing up as the daughter of Thomas and Eleanor Hayes, I had everything: private schools, summers in the Hamptons, every luxury imaginable. My father had clawed his way to the top of the real estate world, and my mother carried a name engraved on half the buildings in Manhattan. But with privilege came expectation. Unlike my cousins, who were content to inherit titles and bank accounts, I was determined to prove my worth on my own terms. So, after Harvard Business School, I rejected a cushy six-figure position at my father's empire. Instead, I chose a near-broke tech startup, an act that baffled my father, devastated my mother, and convinced Ethan I'd lost my mind. "You could drive a Porsche in a year working for Uncle Thomas," he sneered. "Instead, you'll be making coffee for geeks who'll crash in 6 months." I only smiled because deep down, I knew he was wrong. That gamble led me to the chaotic world I craved: late nights, insane deadlines, and raw innovation. Within 18 months, I was product manager. More importantly, it was there that I met Lucian, a 65-year-old legend in Silicon Valley. Unlike my father, he didn't measure success by status. He wore the same sweaters, drove an old Toyota, and yet had founded 3 unicorns. "True wealth is invisible," he told me once. Those words etched themselves into me. 2 years later, when our startup was bought out, I used the payout to launch my own company, Client Dynamics, naming it in honor of Lucian, who became my first investor. The grind nearly broke me: 18-hour days, a cramped apartment, endless rejections. But through every failure, Lucian stood by my side, steady as stone. And then came the moment that bound us forever. On my 27th birthday, after a brutal quarter that nearly sank us, Lucian handed me a small, worn box. Inside lay the watch that would ignite a storm at my family's dinner table, the very one that caught my father's eye, the one that changed everything. It wasn't glittering with diamonds or encrusted in gold, yet the moment I held it, I felt its quiet power. It was a Lucian original, crafted long before his name became legendary in Silicon Valley. I had seen pictures of it in articles, whispered about as part of a collection few believed even existed, but I had no idea of its true worth until it was fastened onto my wrist. "Lucian, I can't accept this," I whispered, panic laced in my voice. "This is worth more than my entire company." He only laughed, the kind of laugh that carried both wisdom and defiance. "For now, maybe," he said softly, tightening the strap. "But one day, it won't be about numbers. Promise me you'll wear it whenever you forget your value. Your real value, not what others see." 3 months later, Lucian was gone, taken by a sudden heart attack that shattered me. That watch became the last thread tying me to him. I wore it like armor, not for its price, but for the weight of his belief in me. And with it, I fought through the storms that followed. Years passed, and Client Dynamics exploded. International offices, Forbes 30 under 30, offers worth hundreds of millions. I had all of it. Yet, I stayed grounded. A small one-bedroom apartment. Public buses instead of limousines. Silence in the spotlight while my cousins screamed their wealth to the world. It wasn't humility. It was loyalty to Lucian's philosophy. True wealth doesn't need applause. At family dinners, I kept quiet, listening as Ethan and the others boasted about their cars, watches, and yachts. My parents never pushed me to reveal more, though I knew Thomas secretly studied my company's filings late at night. His glances told me he was starting to understand what I had built. Then came the annual Hayes dinner, a ritual carried through generations. At my father's sprawling Connecticut estate, Luxury wasn't just decoration, it was a declaration of power. Uncle Henry would be there, as always, ready to turn the gathering into a competition of egos. Unlike my father, who built brick by brick, Henry married into money and clawed status through connections. His children, led by Ethan, mirrored his obsession with symbols. Dinners had long stopped being about family. They were showcases, battlegrounds of status. As I dressed, I felt the echo of Lucien's voice. Let them flaunt their Porsches. You're building something that will outlive them all. I smiled faintly, slipping into my simple jeans, white blouse, minimal makeup. And of course, the watch. Always the watch. I ordered an Uber, knowing exactly how ridiculous it would look, pulling up next to their lineup of toys. As we rolled through the iron gates, the driver gave a low whistle. Quite the palace, he muttered, steering along the driveway bordered by flawless hedges. Ahead, the Georgian mansion gleamed in the golden dusk, both beautiful and suffocating. By the time we reached the circular entrance, I could already feel the judgment in the air. Ethan's Ferrari blazed red under the lights, parked at a perfect angle for maximum attention. Beside it, Uncle Henry's Bentley, then Amber's Range Rover. Each car was parked like a weapon, silently screaming their place in the hierarchy. My Uber, a plain Toyota Camry, slid awkwardly into view like an intruder. I thanked the driver, tipped generously, and stepped into the autumn air. The chill bit at my skin, but it wasn't the cold that sent a shiver down my spine. Because in that instant, from the second floor, a shadow moved behind the glass, watching me. Ethan's eyes were already fixed on me the moment I stepped onto the marble driveway, his smug grin betraying the judgment in his mind about my modest Toyota. I could feel the tension radiating before I even reached the door. Before I could reach for the bell, the massive front doors swung open, revealing Santos, my parents' longtime butler. His usually formal expression softened instantly into a warm, familiar smile. "Miss Serena, welcome home," he said, his voice steady yet welcoming. "Your parents are in the main salon with the other guests." "Thank you, Santos," I replied, returning his smile. "How are Maria and the kids?" "Very well, thank you. Diego started college this fall, the first in the family," he said with pride. "That's wonderful," I said, genuinely pleased. I had helped Santos' son with his college essays last year. "He's studying computer science?" "Yes, he often speaks of you. Your encouragement meant a lot." I squeezed his arm lightly, feeling a small surge of connection, before stepping past him into the grand entry hall. Marble floors stretched beneath my feet, and the sweeping staircase loomed above. From the salon, muffled conversation and classical music floated toward me. I inhaled deeply, straightened my shoulders, and advanced toward the gathering. My mother spotted me first. Ella Elena Hayes, striking, commanding, yet elegant even in her early 60s, approached with the grace of someone fully aware of the power she wielded. Navy blue designer dress, silver-streaked hair perfectly styled, posture impeccable. She air-kissed both cheeks. "Serena, darling," she said. Her eyes flicked over my outfit in a silent assessment. "You could have worn the Chanel I gifted you for your birthday. Perfect for tonight." "This is more comfortable, Mom," I said, hugging her genuinely. She returned it, her stiffness barely concealed. "You look beautiful, as always," she said with a soft sigh, though a small smile followed. "At least the blouse is silk. Come greet everyone. Ethan just landed a huge account at the firm." Naturally, Ethan's accomplishments were paraded first. I followed my mother into the salon, a space of opulence. Soaring ceilings, antique furnishings, priceless artwork. About 20 family members were gathered in small clusters, champagne flutes in hand, already sizing me up. Thomas Hayes glanced up from a discussion with Uncle Henry near the fireplace. Tall, distinguished, hair now streaked with gray, he moved toward me, breaking from his brother. "There is my girl," he said warmly, embracing me with familiarity and a hint of pride. The scent of his cologne transported me back to childhood. "How was the drive?" "Fine, Dad." "No traffic," I said. He studied my face carefully. "You look tired. Working too hard, perhaps?" "I'm managing," I admitted, a small smile on my lips. He nodded, his voice lowering. "Your last quarterly filing impressed me. That Johnson & Williams contract. Very well done," I blinked in surprise. "You noticed?" A faint smile curved his lips. "I keep an eye on you, Serena. I'm proud. You're building something on your own terms." He squeezed my shoulder with a strength that steadied me. Before I could respond, Uncle Henry appeared, cocktail in hand, his loud laugh filling the room. "Serena, there you are. We thought you'd forgotten us, the truly successful ones." His grin was sharp, eyes cold behind it. "Hello, Uncle Henry," I said, offering a brief hug. "How are things at Westfield Financial?" "Booming, absolutely booming. Just acquired a boutique firm in Boston, adding $2 billion to our portfolio," he boasted, taking a long sip. "But enough about me. How's your little startup? Still afloat?" My father's expression flickered, a silent warning to his brother, but I simply smiled. "We are managing, thank you for asking." "Good, good," he said patronizingly, patting my arm. "Persistence is key. Ethan is somewhere around here, no doubt showing off." "He was made junior partner last month, the youngest in the firm's history," my mother announced, her tone dripping with subtle pride. "That is wonderful," I said, forcing enthusiasm into my voice. "I'll be sure to congratulate him." As if summoned, Ethan appeared at Thomas's side, all polished charm and carefully curated confidence. At 32, he was the image of conventional attractiveness, sculpted in high-end gyms, refined in exclusive barbershops. His custom-tailored suit screamed wealth, and the diamond-encrusted watch on his wrist practically glinted at me. "Cousin Serena," he said, leaning in for an air kiss near my cheek. "Loved the simple look, so authentic." "Ethan," I replied with a measured nod. "Congratulations on making junior partner." He adjusted his tie with exaggerated precision. "Thanks. The Ferrari outside, my celebration gift. 0 to 60 in under 3 seconds. "Impressive," I murmured, though my mind was elsewhere. The weight of Lucian's watch on my wrist grounded me, a constant reminder of what truly mattered. Before I could breathe, Amber swept in, her heels clacking against the marble. "Serena, oh my God, it's been ages," she gushed, hugging me with the energy of someone 3 glasses of champagne in. "I love your hair, so natural." Amber, 26, already on her second husband, seemed more like a walking Instagram post than a PR professional. "Thanks, Amber. You look great. Just returned from Capri," she said, tossing her highlighted hair. "Alejandro has a villa there, 6 bedrooms, infinity pool, private beach. We might get one nearby, modest, just 3 million euros." I nodded politely, listening as she extolled the virtues of Italian luxury real estate. Over her shoulder, the room unfolded like a parade of opulence. Justin flaunted a new Rolex to Madison, who was scrolling through Maldives vacation photos, while Aunt Pamela detailed her Hamptons renovation, complete with imported Italian marble and trustworthy contractors. The air buzzed with the familiar melody of competitive wealth. Amid it all, I stood calm, Lucian's watch steady on my wrist, my mind on the next morning's conference call with a non-profit connecting homeless individuals to jobs. 2 worlds collided in one room, and I felt the tension of living between them. A staff member appeared, announcing dinner, a welcome interruption. My father fell into step beside me. "You seem quiet tonight," he observed. "Just a bit tired," I replied. "End of the quarter is always hectic." He nodded, then quietly added, "I read about your housing initiative in the Times business section, providing your platform to affordable housing advocates pro bono." "That was kind of you." I looked at him, surprised. He rarely mentioned details of my work. "It felt like the right thing to do," I said simply. A flicker of approval crossed his face. "Your grandfather would have thought the same, always remembered his roots, and I haven't forgotten, no matter what Henry believes." Before I could reply, we stepped into the dining room, a table for 24, sparkling with crystal, silver, and fine china. Name cards marked our places. Of course, I was seated between Ethan and Madison. Another family dinner began. The first course arrived promptly. Seared scallops with citrus reduction, beautifully plated. Wine glasses filled, conversations flowing, the show underway. Achievements were dropped casually, acquisitions boasted with subtle gloating, status confirmed with every glance. "Madison, that necklace is gorgeous," Aunt Pamela remarked. "Is it new?" Madison lightly touched the diamond pendant at her neck. "Oh, this?" "Yes, Thomas surprised me after finalizing the Peterson merger, a 12-carat cushion cut. Custom designed by that jeweler downtown, the one all the celebrities use," Madison gushed, holding the diamond as if it could hypnotize everyone. "How thoughtful," Ella Elena Hayes replied smoothly. "Speaking of mergers, Henry, I heard Westfield is eyeing that Chicago firm. Uncle Henry dabbed his mouth with his napkin before responding, a gleam of pride in his eyes. Yes, negotiations are near completion. Ethan handled the due diligence brilliantly. All eyes shifted to Ethan, who wore the kind of modest expression that seemed carefully rehearsed. Just doing my job, he said smoothly, swirling his glass. This acquisition boosts annual revenue by roughly 30%, and we're exploring expansion into the Pacific Rim next. Uncle Henry leaned back, beaming. Ethan has always had a knack for business. Of course, he inherited it from me. My father, Thomas, raised a single eyebrow, but remained silent, sipping his wine. I caught the flicker of memory in his eyes, how Henry had nearly sunk his first investment firm before marrying into the Westfield dynasty and securing his senior position. And Justin, dear, how is the new role at Goldman? Ella Elena inquired, shifting attention to another cousin. Justin adjusted his tie with precision. Challenging, but rewarding. We just closed a $4 billion deal with a Saudi investment group, flying to Riyadh next month on the company jet. The second course arrived, roasted beet salad with goat cheese and candied walnuts. I stayed quiet, answering only when directly addressed, my thoughts elsewhere. Ethan, however, seemed intent on drawing me into the verbal sparring. So, Serena, he said, swirling his expensive Bordeaux, eyes sharp, how's the entrepreneurial life? Still at that co-working space downtown? Actually, we moved to our own offices last year in the Flatiron District, I replied evenly. Must be costly, he remarked with a hint of condescension. It works for us, I said calmly. And how many employees now? Still just you and those two programmers? We've expanded a bit, I noted. He shot a knowing glance to his father. Startups are risky, 90% fail in the first year. The fact you've lasted this long is impressive. Thank you, I replied dryly, feeling the subtle bite in his words. Aunt Pamela leaned in, her smile sweet yet calculating. Darling, if you ever need help, the family is here. No shame in knowing when it's time to try something else. I'm sure your father could find a fitting role at Hayes Development. A flicker of irritation surged, but I maintained composure. That's very kind, Aunt Pamela, but we're managing just fine. Of course, dear, she said, patting my hand in a way that screamed disbelief. A young woman should focus on stability. Take Madison, for example. She and Thomas just bought that brownstone in Brooklyn Heights. Madison glowed, sipping her wine. Renovations are expensive, but worth it. We're adding a wine cellar and home theater. You should visit when it's done, Serena. Might spark some inspiration. I offered a tight smile. Sounds lovely. Uncle Roger here, he interjected from across the table. Entrepreneurship is admirable, but security in an established company counts. My college roommate tried a startup, invested everything. Now he's running a Bank of America branch in New Jersey. Several family members nodded knowingly, the cautionary tale landing like a subtle jab. I recall when you first mentioned your business, Ethan said, cutting into his salmon as the main course arrived. Data analysis for small businesses, right? That's correct, I replied, taking a composed bite. Seems like a limited market, he noted, shaking his head. Small businesses usually can't afford this. Enterprise clients, maybe? We have a diverse client base, I said simply, unwavering. Ethan's smirk remained, but he didn't falter. I just have concerns about the long-term viability, especially in this economy, Aunt Pamela remarked, her voice dripping caution. Venture capital has dropped sharply since interest rates rose. I thought about the $20 million in funding we secured last quarter and the offers from 3 major VC firms I was weighing. We managed just fine, I said evenly, letting the confidence in my tone speak louder than words. My father cleared his throat. Serena's company is doing exceptionally well. Their growth metrics are impressive. Ethan's jaw tightened, surprise flickering across his face before he quickly masked it with practiced nonchalance. Well, good for her. Passion matters. Even if it requires some lifestyle compromises, Madison immediately jumped in, her voice saccharine. Absolutely, Serena. I admire your dedication to simplicity. Must feel grounding to live like ordinary people. I caught my father's eyes on me, unreadable, while my mother shifted uneasily beside him, balancing the urge to defend her daughter with the need to maintain a facade of familial harmony. I answered calmly, there is dignity in living within one's means, a principle Lucian had instilled in me. Lucian? Uncle Henry asked, curiosity tinged with skepticism. Lucian, I clarified, my mentor. He passed away last year. Oh, the tech guy, Ethan scoffed. I read about him. Software fortune, yet lived like a pauper. Eccentric to say the least. A wave of irritation surged through me, but I held it in check. He believed true wealth is measured by the impact you have, not the possessions you accumulate. Ethan laughed lightly. Easy to say when you have billions. I bet he still flew private jets and owned homes across the globe. Actually, he flew commercial and had one modest home in Palo Alto, I corrected firmly. Most of his wealth went into his foundation for educational access. Well, to each their own, Ethan shrugged. But there's nothing wrong with enjoying the fruits of your labor. Life's short. What's the point of success if you can't flaunt it a little? As the conversation pivoted to Madison's upcoming Paris trip, I felt Lucian's watch against my wrist, a tangible reminder of his quiet integrity, of measuring success by lives uplifted, not status symbols. Around this table, the contrast could not have been sharper. My reflection was broken by Amber, practically giddy, describing her new Mercedes. Interior fully customized, took 3 months to get perfect. But when driving through the Hamptons, impression matters. Ethan nodded approvingly. Image is everything. Car, address, connections. They all signal your place in the hierarchy. He turned his gaze to me, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Speaking of which, Serena, I noticed you arrived by Uber. Still taking the bus, too? The room froze. Condescension hung in the air like a blade. I saw my mother flush, my aunt's thinly veiled pity, my uncle's satisfied smirk at his son's jab. But my father's reaction was unexpected, his attention fixed on my wrist, where Lucian's watch peeked out from beneath my blouse. His eyes widened, fork frozen midair. Stunned recognition clear. Ethan, misreading the moment as embarrassment on my part, leaned forward. I mean, frugality is one thing, but public transport in New York? Unpredictable. And let's not talk about the characters you meet. I opened my mouth to respond, but my father's voice cut through the tension like a knife. Is that what I think it is? All heads turned, eyes locked on Lucian's watch. I glanced down, suddenly aware of its weight. What do you mean? Your watch, he said deliberately, setting his fork down. May I see it? The table went utterly silent. Even Ethan faltered, caught off guard by the sudden, undeniable gravity of the moment. I hesitated for a moment, then extended my arm across the table. My father leaned forward, eyes fixed on the timepiece with growing astonishment. This is a Lucian original, he said quietly, from his limited first collection. Uncle Henry frowned. The tech entrepreneur who died last year? He made watches? Before he entered the tech world, my father explained, still studying the watch, he began as a horologist, crafting a small collection of handmade timepieces before launching his first business. Only 50 were ever produced. He glanced at me, a mix of surprise and newfound admiration on his face. How did you come to own this? All eyes shifted to me. The atmosphere at the table changed instantly. Ethan's previous teasing lingered awkwardly. Lucian gifted it to me, I replied simply, before he passed away. He was my mentor and an early backer of my company. My father leaned back in his chair, voice low but deliberate. Do you realize what this is worth? I nodded. I understand it's valuable, but that's not why I wear it. That, my father said, now addressing everyone at the table, is a $2 million watch, possibly more due to its provenance, especially since Klein's passing has made his collection even more sought after. A collective gasp swept the table. Ethan's jaw literally dropped. Madison's fork clattered to the plate. Aunt Pamela began coughing into her wine. Oh, this old thing, I said with a casual shrug, pulling my sleeve slightly to display the watch. Better I wear it daily. Lucian believed beautiful items should be used, not tucked away. My father shook his head in disbelief. The craftsmanship is remarkable. Each piece was entirely handmade by Klein himself. The movement is based on a groundbreaking design of his own invention. Collectors have hunted these for years. Most are held in private collections or museums. Uncle Henry now stared at the watch with renewed interest. $2 million on your wrist, Serena. You've insured it, I hope. I have, I reassured him. Lucian took care of that when he presented it to me. He said it was the first creation that truly mattered to him. Ethan regained enough composure to speak, but his tone had completely changed. "I had no idea you were connected to Lucian. He was a legend in the field. He was more than that," I said softly. "He was a friend. He believed in what I was creating when very few others did." "Specifically what?" Uncle Henry asked, his previous skepticism replaced with genuine interest. "You've always been somewhat vague about your company." I took a sip of water, considering how much to reveal. Lucian had always emphasized strategic transparency. Perhaps it was time. "We developed a proprietary algorithm that helps businesses optimize operations through predictive analytics," I explained. "We initially focused on small businesses because they were underserved, but we've grown significantly. We now collaborate with several Fortune 500 companies, 3 major healthcare systems, and the federal government." My mother blinked in astonishment. "The federal government? You never mentioned that the contract was finalized last month," I said. "We'll be rolling out our platform across multiple agencies over the next year. It's our largest deal to date." "How large?" Ethan asked, unable to hide his curiosity. I met his gaze squarely. $900 million over 5 years. Another stunned silence fell over the table. My father looked at me with open pride. My mother seemed utterly perplexed. "But you still live in that tiny city apartment," she said, clearly confused, "and take the bus." I smiled. "I enjoy my apartment. It's close to our offices and I can walk to my favorite coffee shop. As for public transport, it's efficient and better for the environment." Lucian rode the bus every day of his life, even after becoming a billionaire. "A true Klein disciple," my father murmured, his eyes full of newfound understanding. Ethan struggled to reconcile this new information with his previous view of me. "So, your company is successful then?" I nodded. "Very much so. We are currently valued at $1.88 billion after our latest funding round. I maintain majority ownership." Uncle Henry choked on his drink, and Aunt Pamela's eyes widened to an almost comical extent. Madison typed furiously on her phone, undoubtedly digging up details about my company. "You're a billionaire?" Ethan asked, his voice tinged with disbelief. "On paper, potentially," I explained. "Most of my wealth is tied to the company's valuation. I take a reasonable salary and live within my means." "But why keep it a secret?" Amber asked, genuine confusion on her face. "If I had that level of success, everyone would know." I thought of Lucian, his quiet confidence, his disregard for impressing others. True success isn't measured by others' opinions, but by the impact you create and the problems you solve. Our platform has helped thousands of small businesses survive and grow. It has improved healthcare delivery in underserved areas. That matters far more than any valuation. My father nodded slowly. Klein's philosophy: focus on the work, not the rewards. I always respected that about him. Ethan seemed unable to process this. The worldview that had placed me at the bottom of the family hierarchy was crumbling within minutes. "But the clothes you wear, the way you live, are choices," he said, still puzzled. I completed his thought. "Just as your choices reflect your values. Lucian taught me that true character is revealed not in words but in priorities." The dinner continued, yet the room's atmosphere had shifted dramatically. Family members who barely noticed me before were now actively engaging. Questions about my company, about Lucian, about my future plans poured in from all directions. I remained composed, neither flaunting nor succumbing to their sudden interest. As dessert was served, Ethan leaned close, his voice low. "I owe you an apology, Serena. I've been condescending and rude. I assumed that because you didn't flaunt your success, you had none." I studied him, seeing past the tailored suit and polished charm to the insecurity beneath. "Success means different things to different people, Ethan. I don't judge your choices. I only ask for the same respect in return." He nodded, humbled. "The watch? It's extraordinary. Klein must have valued you greatly." I touched the timepiece lightly. "It's a daily reminder of what truly matters. Not its value, but what it represents. Craftsmanship, integrity, and the creation of something enduring." Across the table, my father watched me, contemplative. For the first time, he saw me not as his little girl needing protection, but as a woman who had forged her own path and succeeded on her own terms. A subtle shift occurred between us, laying a foundation of mutual respect. The watch that had once been Lucian's silent companion now narrated my story, revealing truths I had kept hidden. Not out of shame, but so I could be recognized for who I am, not what I own. Its presence on my wrist was a tangible link to the mentor who had shaped my business philosophy and my life. As plates were cleared and coffee poured, conversation circled back to the watch and its former owner. Uncle Henry, unusually quiet for the last several minutes, finally spoke. "I still can't fathom that Lucian was your mentor," he said, stirring cream into his cup. He was notoriously selective. How did that relationship form? All eyes turned to me. Even the staff paused, sensing the gravity of the moment. My father leaned in, eager to hear the story. "I met Lucian at Innovate Tech, the startup I joined after graduation," I began. "He came on as an advisor during a particularly difficult quarter. The company was burning through its funds, and our product development had stalled." "I remember that company," Ethan interjected. "They were eventually acquired by Google, right?" I nodded. "For $300 million, but at that moment, we were on the brink of collapse. Lucian stepped in and instantly altered our trajectory. He had this uncanny ability to slice through the noise and identify the core value proposition. That was his genius." My father nodded. "I once heard him speak at a conference. His clarity of thought was unparalleled. He noticed that I asked different questions than the others," I continued. "After one particularly intense meeting, he invited me for coffee. That turned into a 3-hour conversation, and by the end, he had offered to mentor me." "Just like that?" Uncle Henry asked skeptically. "Lucian made decisive moves when he saw potential," I clarified. "He later told me he saw in me the same spark he recognized in himself at my age, a unique perspective on problem solving." My mother, unusually quiet until now, finally spoke. "And he invested in your company when you launched it?" "He was my first investor," I confirmed. $500,000 based on a handshake. No formal pitch, no endless slides. He said he was investing in me. Not just the idea, Uncle Henry's disapproval of such unconventional methods was evident, though I remained unshaken. I smiled. Lucian was anything but ordinary. He believed the greatest innovations come from trust and freedom, not rigid frameworks or mountains of paperwork. He gave me that initial funding and encouraged me to create something meaningful. His only conditions were that I retain control of the company and allocate a portion of profits to help others. "The foundation you set up last year," my father noted, nodding. "The one for tech education in underprivileged communities. That was part of your arrangement with Klein?" "Yes," I replied, slightly surprised he knew. Though I would have done it anyway. Lucian taught me that true success brings responsibility. Madison, who had been scrolling on her phone, looked up, eyes wide. "According to Forbes, Client Dynamics is projected to reach a $3 billion valuation next quarter. There's even talk of an IPO. She glanced at me. "You named your company after him." "It felt right," I said simply. "His philosophy drives everything we do." "But why keep all this private?" Aunt Pamela asked, gesturing vaguely at my understated attire. "You could live in a penthouse, drive luxury cars, indulge in every comfort." I considered how to convey a mindset so different from the one dominating this table. When Lucian gave me this watch, he told me something I'll never forget. "The moment you feel compelled to prove your worth to others is the moment you've forgotten what you're truly worth. I don't need to showcase my success to affirm it." My father nodded slowly, a new respect in his eyes. Klein understood that true power lies in knowing your value without seeking validation. That's why even rivals respected him. Exactly, I agreed. He lived that philosophy daily. The greatest lessons he imparted weren't about business or tech. They were about integrity, purpose, and the responsibility that comes with success. Ethan, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke. "So this watch must carry immense sentimental value beyond its monetary worth." "It's invaluable to me," I confirmed. "Lucian wore it while building $3 billion companies. He said it kept him grounded, a reminder of the patience and craftsmanship needed to create something lasting. And now you wear it while building your own enterprise," my father remarked with a slight smile. I shook my head. "Not an empire, solutions. Our platform helps businesses operate efficiently, saving jobs, reducing waste, and improving conditions. The valuation is a byproduct, not the goal." Uncle Henry still looked doubtful, but my father nodded, understanding deepening. I sensed a shift, respect mixed with perhaps regret for not recognizing this side of me sooner. "The federal contract you mentioned," he asked, "the one announced last month to modernize agency operations and cut governmental waste?" "Yes," I affirmed. "We outperformed several major tech companies for the bid. Our solution is projected to save taxpayers nearly $12 billion over the next decade, while drastically improving service delivery," I explained, watching the reactions ripple across the table. "That was your company?" Uncle Henry exclaimed, eyes wide. "It dominated the financial news. They never mentioned your name." "I prefer to maintain a low profile," I said calmly. "The work itself speaks volumes." "But surely now with this success, you'll elevate your lifestyle," Aunt Pamela pressed, still grappling with my choices. "Perhaps a larger apartment, at the very least." I offered a polite smile. "I enjoy where I live. It's convenient and contains everything I need." Lucian lived in the same modest house for 30 years, even as his net worth skyrocketed into billions. He taught me that excessive consumption rarely equals greater happiness. "So, you just work all the time?" Madison asked, the tone betraying her disbelief. "I work on what truly matters," I replied. "But I also travel, volunteer, and spend time with friends who value me for who I am, not for what I own. My life is full in ways that money cannot measure." "And the foundation?" my father asked, leaning forward with curiosity. A genuine smile spread across my face. "The Klein Foundation for Technological Equity. We provide intensive tech education and mentorship to students from underprivileged communities, along with scholarships, equipment, internships, and ongoing support. Our first cohort of 50 students is already halfway through the program. They are extraordinary 50 students." Uncle Henry raised an eyebrow. "Seems modest for someone of your means." "We're just beginning," I clarified. "The program is rigorous, tailored to each student. We want to perfect our methods before scaling, but over the next decade, we aim to impact 10,000 students annually nationwide." 10,000 lives transformed, my father murmured. "That is a legacy far more profound than any material possession." I nodded. "Lucian always said that true pride comes not from what you build for yourself, but from the opportunities you provide and the people you uplift." As coffee was cleared and the family began drifting toward the library for after-dinner drinks, I sensed a subtle but unmistakable shift in their behavior. Their eyes and gestures spoke of a recalibration, an acknowledgement of my accomplishments, but I carefully kept the focus on character rather than wealth. Ethan approached me as we walked down the hallway lined with ancestral portraits. "I feel like I need to completely rethink everything I believed about you," he admitted. "All this time, I assumed you couldn't live like the rest of us, and yet you could buy and sell most of us multiple times over." I paused, meeting his gaze steadily. "That is exactly why I never discuss my company's worth or personal finances, Ethan. I don't want to be treated differently because of money. That is the least interesting aspect of who I am." He looked genuinely perplexed. "But isn't that what we all want? Acknowledgement of our success?" "I find recognition in the impact we create," I replied. "Watching our platform help businesses thrive, seeing students at the foundation succeed, knowing Lucian would be proud of what I've built, that is the acknowledgement that matters." Ethan glanced at my watch and back at me. "I think I have a lot to learn from you, Serena." For the first time all evening, his words rang sincere. By the time the family moved into the library, a room of dark wood panels, towering shelves, leather chairs, and a stocked bar, the dynamics had completely shifted. Conversations fractured into smaller clusters, and I found myself included where I would have been ignored before. Uncle Henry sought my insights on market trends. Aunt Pamela hurried to introduce me to her charitable associate. Even Justin, who usually overlooked me, asked about potential investment opportunities. I poured myself a glass of whiskey and found a quiet corner, letting the evening's revelations settle. The knowledge of my success had redrawn the family hierarchy, leaving me both amused and quietly triumphant at the subtle power it had granted me. I was still the same person who had arrived by Uber just hours ago, yet the room now treated me with a mixture of awe and caution, as though my very presence had been upgraded. "Quite the performance," my father remarked, appearing beside me with a glass of scotch in hand. "Mind if I join you?" I gestured to the empty chair next to me. "Please do." He settled in, taking a slow, thoughtful sip. You know, I've always admired your wish for privacy and independence, but I had no idea you were concealing so much. Would it have changed anything if you had known? I asked, studying his expression. He paused, considering. I've always been proud of you, Serena, but perhaps I could have shielded you from some of the family's condescension more effectively. I can handle condescension, I assured him. It's the sudden shift in treatment now, that they know my company's valuation, that unsettles me. My father nodded knowingly, eyes distant. People tend to focus on money, not the individual. That's why I've always been cautious of those who appear only after wealth is public. Lucian faced the same challenge, I said softly. He once told me he could count on one hand the number of people who truly understood him, not his status, but him. He sounds extraordinary, my father murmured, swirling his drink. I regret not knowing him better. We'd occasionally cross paths at conferences, yet never truly connected. You would have appreciated him, I said. Brilliant, humble, genuine, just like his protege, he added with a subtle smile. You know, he continued, voice quiet, as I watched you tonight, I saw so much of my younger self in you. The drive to achieve something meaningful, to be judged by merit rather than background. I blinked, surprised. My father, usually so at ease with wealth and privilege, was revealing a depth I hadn't anticipated. Really? But you seem to embrace all of this, I gestured around the opulent library. He laughed softly. Your mother embraces it. I tolerate it for her happiness. Between us, I'd be content in a space a quarter of this size. He leaned closer, voice dropping. Why do you think I spend so much time at the office or the cabin in Vermont? All of this, he gestured expansively, was never my goal. I had no idea, I admitted. It seems we share the same ability, keeping our true selves hidden. He took another sip, reflective. We may have both excelled at it. I should have recognized what you were building. I should have acknowledged your accomplishments sooner. You noticed enough, I said, with a hint of a smile. Those quarterly filings spoke volumes. His expression softened. Curiosity at first, genuine admiration later. Once I saw your achievements. But I respected your privacy. You wanted to succeed on your own terms. I didn't want to intrude. I truly appreciated that, I said sincerely. It meant everything to create this on my own. His tone shifted, serious now. The watch, it really was Klein's personal timepiece? I nodded, extending my wrist so the warm light of the library highlighted the intricate craftsmanship. He gifted it to me on my 17th birthday. He said it had been with him through everything, and now it belongs with me. My father studied it with keen eyes. I'd heard whispers about his collection, but few pieces were ever documented. Most went to close friends or family, never sold. I told him he made this one entirely himself, spending 2 years perfecting the movement while launching his first tech company. He said it taught him patience and precision, values that have guided him, and now, me clearly, he said, eyes meeting mine. And now, they serve you well. Before I could respond, Ethan approached, a noticeable humility softening his earlier arrogance. Excuse me, Uncle Thomas, may I have a word with Serena? My father glanced at me and I nodded. He rose, a playful twinkle in his eye. Of course. I should check on your mother. She's probably already planning how to redecorate your childhood bedroom, now that she knows you can afford priceless art. He winked and walked away. Ethan took the empty seat, his usual confidence tempered. I wanted to properly apologize, Serena. My behavior tonight, and honestly at every family gathering for years, has been inexcusable, Ethan admitted, his voice low but earnest. I studied him, searching for sincerity beneath the well-practiced charm. Apology accepted, but I'm curious, what exactly are you apologizing for? He blinked, clearly taken aback. For treating you as if you were less successful, less accomplished than me. For all the remarks about the bus, your lifestyle, everything. And if my company were worth $10,000 instead of nearly $2 billion, would you still be apologizing? I asked mildly, letting the weight of my question hang in the air. Ethan's cheeks reddened. That's fair. The only fair question, he murmured. It's the only question that matters, I stated firmly. Because if your apology hinges solely on discovering I'm wealthier than you imagined, you've completely missed the point. He paused, absorbing my words. You're right, he finally said. I've been measuring people and success with all the wrong metrics. It's how I was raised, but it's no excuse. It's never too late to reassess your values, I told him gently. Lucian was 40 when he realized wealth and status weren't the ultimate measure. It changed everything: his life, his business, his outlook. I'd like to learn more about him sometime, Ethan said quietly, almost reverently. His philosophy, if you'd share it. I'd appreciate that, I admitted, slightly caught off guard by the genuine curiosity in his voice. As Ethan walked away, my mother appeared at my side, a hint of fluster on her face. Serena, darling, I feel awful about all the little remarks I've made over the years, about your apartment, your clothes, your choices. She sat beside me, taking my hands. If I had known about your success, she began, but I gently interrupted. Mom, that's exactly why I didn't tell you. I wanted you to appreciate my choices for what they are, not because of their value. She frowned, puzzled. But don't you see? We only want the best for you, to see you living below your means when you could have everything. This is what I want, I said firmly. A business that solves real problems, a foundation that opens doors for deserving students, a life guided by purpose rather than possessions. But you could have both, she insisted. Purpose and beautiful things. I glanced at Lucian's watch on my wrist. I have both. This is the most precious item I own, not for its market price, but for what it represents. The same goes for my company, my foundation, and my relationships, my mother sighed, still struggling to fully grasp it. Well, at the very least, let me help you find a nicer apartment, something that suits your status. I chuckled softly. Some things never change. I love you, Mom, just the way you are, even when you try to redesign my life. She gave a reluctant smile. And I love you, even when you stubbornly refuse perfectly fine Chanel dresses. As the evening wound down, I found myself engaged in the most authentic conversations I'd ever had at a family gathering. Some relatives were still recalibrating their view of me after learning the truth about my success. Others were quietly questioning their own definitions of achievement. A few, like my father, connected with me on a deeper level, seeing past both my modesty and the company valuation to the person I had become. When it was time to leave, I requested another Uber, politely declining offers from relatives to drive me. My father accompanied me to the door, waiting for the car. You've given them all something to ponder tonight, he said, a quiet smile on his face, myself included. That was never my aim, I replied. I only wanted to be seen as a person, not a number, whether they view it positively or negatively. He nodded thoughtfully. Lucian Klein's greatest legacy may not be his companies or even his watches, but the lessons he imparted on the essence of true success. He rested a hand on my shoulder. I'd love to visit your office, meet your team, and learn more about what you're building. I'd truly appreciate that, I said, genuinely pleased. Next week, perhaps? I could give you a tour and introduce you to everyone. It's a plan, he agreed, just as my Uber pulled up. And Serena, keep wearing that watch. It is exactly where it should be, I murmured, glancing down at Lucian's timepiece as I settled into the back seat of the car. The watch gleamed in the dim light, a silent reminder of the layers objects and people hold. To most of my family, it had instantly elevated my status from struggling entrepreneur to formidable contender. To me, it remained a link to a mentor who taught that the true measure of success is not in accumulation, but in what you give back. 3 weeks after that revealing family dinner, I found myself in my office overlooking Madison Avenue. Sleek and minimal, the space had glass walls, clean lines, and functional furniture. No overpriced art. Only enlarged photos of our team at work, a daily reminder of the people whose lives our technology touched. My father's visit had far exceeded expectations. Early in the morning, he arrived, toured the office thoroughly, engaged with my executive team, and posed sharp, insightful questions about our tech and business model. Watching him interact with our developers, genuinely intrigued, I felt a surge of pride. By day's end, he was swapping contacts with our CTO, plotting potential partnerships. You've created something extraordinary here, he said later on the rooftop deck, the city sprawling beneath us. Not just the technology or the business, but the culture. These people are passionate, committed. That was always the goal, I replied, to build something meaningful, something that truly matters. Now, as I reviewed final plans for our foundation's new headquarters, I reflected on how much had changed since that night. My daily routine remained largely the same, but family dynamics had shifted. My father and I now spoke several times a week, strategizing about business, foundation projects, and occasionally debating nuances of watch collecting, a shared interest we had discovered. My mother had reluctantly accepted that a penthouse was off the table, though she still sneaked a few designer pieces into my wardrobe for special events. The most surprising development was Ethan. True to his word, he reached out to explore Lucian's philosophy. Over multiple coffees, I saw his genuine desire to reevaluate priorities. He even began volunteering with a local youth coding program, uncovering a knack for teaching that startled us both. The family's overall dynamic had shifted as well. At a cousin's birthday the previous weekend, conversations had veered away from materialism, instead exploring ideas and accomplishments. Whether the change would endure was uncertain, but it was a hopeful start. A soft knock interrupted my thoughts. "Your 2 o'clock is here, the high school student you mentioned." "Send her in," I replied, rising to greet my guest. Zoe entered, a 16-year-old with determined posture and bright, intelligent eyes. Her application to our foundation's mentorship program had impressed us. She proposed using data analytics to tackle food insecurity in urban neighborhoods. "Miss Hayes," she said formally, extending a hand, "thank you for meeting with me." "Please call me Serena," I corrected gently, motioning for her to sit. "I was very impressed by your application, Zoe. Your approach to mapping food desserts using multiple data points was innovative." Her face lit up. "My family depends on food assistance, so I understand how difficult access can be. I want to create solutions, not just identify problems." Listening to her, I was reminded of myself at her age, facing challenges in different forms. She embodied the very qualities Lucian sought in mentees: vision, determination, and a drive to create real-world impact. "Would you be interested in becoming the first participant in our new direct mentorship program?" I asked after she concluded. "You would work alongside our data science team one afternoon each week, developing your project with expert guidance. A stipend is included, of course." Her eyes widened, disbelief and excitement mingling. "Are you serious?" "That would change everything for me," Zoe whispered, her voice trembling with excitement. "Completely serious," I confirmed, locking eyes with her. "Your idea has real potential. With the right support, it could transform thousands of families' lives." As we delved into the project details, Lucian's watch gleamed on my wrist, a constant reminder of the responsibility embedded in success. By guiding Zoe, I wasn't just mentoring a student. I was honoring Lucian's legacy in the most meaningful way, creating opportunities for the next generation of problem solvers. After Zoe left, practically floating on adrenaline, I called my father to share the launch of the mentorship initiative. He listened quietly, then surprised me. "I want to contribute to the foundation," he said. "Not only financially, though that too if needed, but with my time. I have experience that could guide these young entrepreneurs." "That would be incredible," I said, genuinely touched. "Your insights could transform their perspective on business." "And I will gain from their fresh outlooks," he replied. "That dinner with the family, Serena, changed more than just their perception of you. It made me reassess my own definition of success. I want to be part of something enduring, something beyond spreadsheets and property." As we finalized his involvement, I marveled at how a single evening, a single moment of truth, had set off ripples that spread far beyond the dining room. Choosing to live by Lucian's philosophy had reshaped not only my life, but the lives of those around me. Later that night, on the subway ride home, I observed the faces around me: a construction worker still in his dusty clothes, a nurse in scrubs, students with backpacks, and a woman in a sharp suit like mine. Each carried their own stories, their own definitions of significance. Lucian had always seen the world this way: people over positions, substance over status. Back in my apartment, I removed the watch and held it in my palm, feeling its weight, its history. It had become far more than a timepiece. It was a compass, a reminder that true wealth lies in what you give, not in what you own, and that value is measured by action, not perception. This watch would never sit behind glass in a museum or be locked away. It would remain with me through board meetings, foundation events, family dinners, quiet nights, marking the hours of a life devoted to purpose, just as it had accompanied Lucian in creating something meaningful and lasting. As I prepared for bed, My phone buzzed. Ethan had just finished his first solo teaching session at the youth coding program. His message read, "I think I finally understand what Lucian meant about valuing impact over image. Thank you for showing me another way to define success." I smiled as I replied, reflecting on the profound truth of authentic connections and purpose-driven work. The watch had captured my father's attention that evening, yes, but what truly mattered was the philosophy it represented. That our worth is not defined by wealth, but by how our actions shape the world. Have you ever experienced a moment when something you owned revealed more about you than expected? Or when someone's perception of you shifted because they saw your true impact? Share your stories in the comments. And if this journey toward genuine success resonated with you, like this video and subscribe for more stories on finding real value in a world obsessed with appearances. Remember, the most valuable possessions aren't measured in dollars. They are measured in the significance they carry in our hearts. Thank you for watching, and may you always recognize your true worth beyond any number in your bank account.